Please express to your broader team our appreciation for how hard they often work on our behalf, in particular during a really difficult period of time throughout the COVID pandemic. I know a lot of members on your team really stepped up, and so if you would share my appreciation for the work that they do day in and day out for this institution. Want to go back to kind of COVID guidance. There's a lot of frustration, some lingering frustration amongst folks, and see if I got this correct. I was going to ask you if there was inconsistencies in your guidance, but I think what you've actually told us is that your guidance to both chambers was consistent, but the implementation of your consistent guidance was inconsistent. Not trying to make a joke there, but your guidance was consistent to the chambers. They implemented it differently. Is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Did you ever feel political pressure in the drafting and preparation of your guidance?
I was subject to the full diversity of views that I appreciated and incorporated those. Some would call it pressure. I would just call it opportunities to listen more closely.
So you were engaged in dialogue, probably with folks from both sides of the aisle, both sides of the Capitol, in the process while you were developing that guidance. Is that a fair assessment?
That's correct, sir. Yes.
Okay. At any point did you get into discussions of potential quarantine of members?
Yes, sir, I did. There were CDC guidelines affecting quarantine recommendations to general Americans, and that would apply to members of Congress and our staff, et cetera, and we had those discussions. Did
the Speaker's office advise you ever not to use the term quarantine?
Never. They never altered my language or made language suggestions.
They did. Say that again. I apologize.
They did not alter my language or make language suggestions.
They did not. So you were in dialogue with the Speaker's office, probably with the Senate side as well, regarding the guidance, but they did not alter any of the text or language.
We had a lot of debates, and it's trying to always draft a better document, more clear, et cetera.
Okay. And so at the end of the day, your guidance issued during COVID across the House was your guidance, but the Speaker's office put forward the guidelines with which were the rules of the House?
That's correct, sir, how they enforced various times.
Okay, and then if I can go back, I know Mr. Griffith was asking you a question in particular as it relates to January 3rd, 2021. So I'm going to take us back just over 2 years. And as you may recall, that day we were in the middle of the pandemic. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle had a close speaker's vote. We can now relate on our side of the aisle. On the broader challenges to get folks across the line. But in that, as we arrived into the Capitol chamber, there's what I call the penalty box, for lack of a better term, kind of a plexiglass area in the House chambers. As you're standing at the dais looking out, it'd be to your upper right. Were you involved in recommendations that would be medically advised to have people behind plexiglass?
Yeah, I discussed a general concept of how could a person in a quarantine status who was disease negative come to the floor and cast their vote. And I said, well, there's a way we could devise such a thing, but I didn't specify dimensions, materials, and the fabrication, et cetera.
So you gave general kind of guidance and ideas of how something may be implemented, which is within your medical realm.
Yes, sir.
But the actual decision-making implementation was that of the Speaker's office.
Yes, sir.
So the first time you saw it, you came in like maybe we all did on January 3rd, 2021?
I was impressed with the quality of the workmanship. I was like, wow, I couldn't have done that as good.
And that location was for members that tested negative but were in a quarantine. Was that your recommendation?
That's correct. So that was for members who were in a quarantine status due to exposure, who felt well, who were test negative, and I specified they had to enter the Capitol through a surveyed route, free of contact with other people, exit the same route, and maintain that just with the appearance in that gallery, and then leave.
Did you offer any advice for any member that potentially tested positive?
Yes, I told them I told them they should follow the CDC guidelines and remain in isolation in their homes and not report to the Congress.
And do you know if people followed that advice?
Yes, sir. I believe every time it came to that, I would have extensive dialogues with the members, and each time the member of Congress would follow my advice. I was very impressed with their dedication to support the CDC guidelines.
Thank you very much. I don't have further questions. Just again, really appreciate you taking the time here. I know how much work and effort goes into your broader office, and appreciate your testimony. I yield back.